Hi, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the grand game-changing webinar for SBL for September 2024 attempt. This is Hasan Dossani here. So today is a very big group who has joined because it's not just my paid students, but it's a global webinar. So all the self-study students are also joined here. So that's good so that we know most of us can benefit from these webinars. What we will be covering is a quick introduction to SBL. We'll talk about the pre-scene formats. We'll discuss the various formats which can be tested in your exam. We will talk about all the professional skills. Most important, I will today cover the exam techniques. This is a very important segment for tonight. And then we will also be speaking with some high scorers who will share their experience so that we can pick up good points from them. We will also cover technical articles and we will also solve one question, but these two items will be done tomorrow. And then, item 8 to 11 will be covered tomorrow, right? So today our target is to cover item number 1 to 7 and 8 to 11 we will cover tomorrow, right? Now, a lot of questions students ask me, do we need to watch the previous webinars? Not necessarily, okay? Those of you who are self-study students, they can watch these two webinars because in these two webinars, I have solved full case studies. Okay, but this is only for self-study students. Those who are already enrolled with me in September, no need to watch any previous webinars. All right. How can you ask question? So since I mentioned today is a very big group, it's a global webinar. So the only way you can ask your question is you have to type your question in the chat box. Okay, I will not be able to take questions, verbal questions through mic. Your question needs to be asked through typing in the chat box. But what is more important is you should only ask questions relating to the slide under discussion. Okay. If you ask any irrelevant question, I will not be able to answer that because it will break the tempo. For any non-relevant questions, we can ask in the end, right? But we will go along with the flow of the presentation. So any questions relating to the topic under discussion, you can ask through the chat box. And I would really encourage you to ask questions, especially the self-study students, all right? Well, a very quick introduction. Most of you might know me, but I'm a chartered accountant and I'm working as CFO in Dubai in an insurance company since last 13 years, right? So I have extensive boardroom experience. What I'm teaching is actually what I'm doing in my profession, right? And regarding my teaching experience, I've been teaching for last 2 decades. I just specialize in SBL. But what's more important is my WhatsApp number. So those of you who don't have my WhatsApp number, please can you save it so that if you have any questions later on, you can easily reach out to me. All right. Also, there is a global WhatsApp group for SBL. If you are already a member of the global WhatsApp group, which is a free group, it's all right. If you are not a member of that, I can quickly share the link right now in the chat box. Okay. So I'm sharing the link of the global WhatsApp group in the chat box. If you are not a member, you can join this group. Okay. Okay. So a little bit about the last attempt, June 2024 attempt. It was an amazing attempt because of the first time there were so many students who actually scored very high marks. You can see from this presentation, 87. These are all my students of VIFHE, and you can see that so many students, and this is a just list of some names. So last attempt was very good in terms of results and marks. I do hope that the trend continues and you are able to score really, really good marks. All right. Again, the SBL pass rate for June was 52%, which is very good. It is actually the highest in the strategic professional level. And for the last 3 attempts, it has been consistent at 52% passing ratio. That's very good. Now, this slide I have spoken about earlier as well, but I just want to touch base on some important points, especially for those students who are doing it for the first time, that SBL is very different from all your other ACCA papers. How come? Because it is one integrated case study. Knowledge of topics is less important. Application of knowledge is more important. 20% of the paper is professional skills, less emphasis on models. There are so many formats which you can be asked. And the last one is the killer. More than 50% of the paper is common sense. This is why SBL is very different from other papers. Less emphasis on theoretical knowledge, more emphasis on, logical thinking, trying to solve a problem, giving some logical solutions, common sense, all these things. And if you can see here, 50% of the paper is common sense. Common sense means that no particular topic or theoretical knowledge or model is required. You will just read the exhibit and try to think. For example, it might give you a proposal. The examiner might give you a proposal and might ask you, what are the pros and cons of this proposal? So just you have to read the proposal and identify some good points and some bad points. This is all logical thinking and common sense thinking, right? Any questions so far? I think it's pretty easy right now. All right. Now this approach really works for SBL. Because it's a different paper, it requires a different mindset. You have to think like a CFO. When you are doing your paper, you must feel and think that you are the CFO of that company or you are a leader of that company. Okay. You have to think like an owner of the company. Just a mindset. And imagine that you are sharing your views with the board of directors and not the examiner. So, you just have to feel and imagine that you are not a student, you are not an accountant, you are a senior person. You will have to use your business mindset and try to explain your point as you are explaining to the board of directors. That's the way you are talking to them, right? So this approach has really helped, especially the high scorers. I have spoken with 3 global prize winners and they have all applied this strategy when they are drafting. It automatically lifts your thought process when you feel like a senior person, right? It's a psychological game. Now, why students fail SBL? So I have gone through all the examiner's report and I have picked up the most common reasons why students fail SBL as per the examiner. His first problem is answers are not linked with the exhibits. The examiner says that an exhibit has been given, your solutions should relate to that exhibit, right? But students, they tend to write general answers from here and there rather than giving specific solutions. So very important. And then students do just copy paste the information from the exhibit without adding own comments or explaining the point. Okay. So just copy pasting will not get you any marks. You will have to then explain your point. You can talk about the impact on the business or the reasons. You have to explain in 1 line, 2 line on your own. And then these 2, 3, and 4 are overlapping. Overspending time on one particular question, normally question number 1, which is a time trap. So obviously, when you will overspend the time on any one question, you are basically hijacking the time from the remaining questions, right? And hence you will not be able to complete the entire paper. So time management is extremely, extremely important. You have to attempt almost 100% paper. You should not expect to pass if you attempt 80 or 85 marks. You should target to attempt at least 95 marks of paper, right? So time management is very important. And I will, under exam techniques today, I will cover certain strategies for time management, all right? And then 50% questions are common sense questions. That's the problem. A lot of students, they find it difficult to handle common sense question because there is no theoretical thing involved, right? It's logical thinking. So how can you overcome that? Just by doing common sense questions, practicing them, at least do 5, 6 common sense questions. So in my paid batch, we have already done 2 common sense questions, right? So you have a good idea how to handle them. And so this is specifically for self-study students. And this one is a new one. This item is a new item which has been recently mentioned by the examiner. Examiner is saying that some students do not understand the requirement. Obviously, if you don't understand the requirement or you misunderstood the requirement, you will then give a wrong answer because you did not understand the requirement, right? So it's very important that we clearly understand what is required so that our drafting can be according to the requirement. So many students, they just quickly read the requirement and they misunderstand and start going in the wrong direction, correct? So I normally read the requirement at least 2 to 3 times. I look at the keywords and then I try to make sense. I double check what exactly is required. If the question is saying discuss the issues, so I will then try to find out issues, right? So very important to read the requirement. And again, this will come through more and more practice. practice. So you see, most of these points, linking, time management, common sense, understanding the requirement, the only way to overcome that is through more and more practice. Theoretical knowledge will not help you in these mistakes. And then there is poor technical knowledge. Sometimes there is insufficient number of points. Students are not doing practice or mocks on the CBE platform. And some students, they have, typing issues, grammar issues, spelling issues, excessive issues. All right. So regarding spelling mistakes, it is acceptable. You will not be penalized, but it has to be in a reasonable level. But if you make excessive spelling mistakes or typo errors, then 1 mark or 2 marks will be deducted. All right. But little bit of error, little bit of typos here and there doesn't matter. All right. So these are the most common reasons, 10 most common reasons why students fail. And this list is in order of priority. All right. So you need to understand your weaknesses from this list. The first step is to understand your weakness. And then through practice, you will try and overcome it. Okay. All right. Okay, a little bit about the pre-seen format. So your current format of the paper that was revised last year in September 2023. So before September 2023, the paper was on a different format. But since September 2023 to date, this format is applicable. It's called the pre-seen format. There was no change in syllabus, only the paper pattern was changed. Now, a pre-seen case study will be published 2 weeks before the exam. So 2 weeks before your exam, ACCA will publish a 10-pager case study. That case study will be tested in your exam. So that's good news or bad news? What do you think? Correct. Absolutely correct. That's wonderful news because we exactly know which case study will be tested. We know the industry, we will know the name of the company, we will know all the background, we will know all the challenges and opportunities and strengths and weaknesses and some financials about the company. We will know all of this beforehand. So now in the exam, what will happen? In the exam, the examiner will give you 3 or 4 additional information. Additional information, right? That's called exhibits. So in the exam, you will be given some additional information through 3 or 4 exhibits. And then some questions will be asked based on those additional information, right? So we already know the background of the company, the industry, the challenges, but the requirements will be from the additional information. So we have to kind of pick up information from the exhibits. We can also try and use some of the background information to give a nice holistic answer. Understood? So additional information and tasks will be given on the exam day. There'll be only 3 tasks or 3 questions and 3 to 4 exhibits. Paper duration is 3 hours and 15 minutes. There is no separate time for reading. This is the total time 3 hours, 15 minutes. You can start writing from the first minute, or you can spend few minutes reading the exhibits and the requirements, entirely up to you. Total time 3 hours, 15 minutes, all inclusive. I will cover this in my exam technique today, how to optimize our time. All right. And the pre-seen material, which was published 2 weeks before, will also be available on the exam day on the CB platform. So the pre-seen will also be accessible on your CBE platform, so that in case you forget something or you want to, double check something, you can always go and open the pre-seen and check it. All right. So 3 questions and normally 3 exhibits, one for each question, or maximum 4 exhibits. So I think they have simplified the format. I'm very happy with the new format. It's very simplified, very professional. That is why the passing rate of SBL has been in 52%, because everything is now very well structured. Any questions on the pre-scene before I move? Okay, very good. Now let's take a quick look at the paper itself, the CBE platform. So those of you who are already enrolled with me, you are very familiar with the CBE platform, right? Because we have done like 6 questions on the platform already. But this is more for those students who have not yet started practicing, and or self-study students. So here you go. So when you go to the CBE platform, Strategic Business Leader, ACCA official resources, let me open specimen exam number 1, specimen exam number. This one. So when you will open the paper, this is the landing page. Okay, this is called the landing page. When you will open the paper, on the left side, you will see the additional information, which is called exhibits, right? These are the additional information. This information was not there in your pre-seen. This is the new information. Your pre-seen is also available, accessible in case you want to or check out something, right? And then there is task. Task number 1 is 34 marks. And then the response options. This is where your answers will be. So there's a word processor, there is a spreadsheet, and there are slides. For SBL, we will be using word processor for our answers. We will not be using any spreadsheet. All right. So stay away from spreadsheets. No need for any Excel spreadsheet in SBL. And yes, slides, if the question asks you to prepare a slide, then you will use the slide option. Otherwise, all your answers will be on the word processor. This is the landing page. You see this screen. It tells you about the company. More importantly, it will tell you about your role, right? You will find your role from the landing page. So here it is saying you are an independent business analyst employed by PSS to advise the PSS board of directors. So our role is independent business analyst, right? So you will find your role on this landing page. Now I have a quick question. Our role, this one, independent business analyst. Are we an external person or an internal person? What do you think? Yes, because I think it's an external role. Although the word employed is there, it's a bit confusing, but the more important word is independent business analyst, which means that you are an independent outsider and you have been employed means you have been engaged to provide advice to the board like a consultant, right? So whenever you will be drafting your answers, you will adopt a tone of a outsider. You will adopt the drafting tone of an external person. Okay. Another important thing on the landing page will be the date. This date will be mentioned on the landing page. Because in all the formats like report or briefing paper or email, you have to mention a certain date. So the date you will find on the landing, the first page, the landing page. So your role and the date will be on the landing page. Do not miss that out, okay? Rest all is, not really important, but the role and this one. Now there are 4 exhibits. The first exhibit here, it says contract terms to supply bed mattress. So this company manufactures bed mattresses, right? The first exhibit, contract terms to supply bed mattresses. So these are probably some proposal. It's the contractual terms of supplying bed mattresses. So I'm pretty sure this is a common sense question. The second exhibit is staff survey result. As the name says, it will tell us information about a staff survey which was done. So probably there will be a question on staff survey, or there might be a question on staffing issues or HR related question. All right. The third one is an email from human resource director. So again, as the name says, it's from the human resource director. It must be something to do with staff or the human resource like training or turnover or I don't know, anything to do with staff. And then there's an email from finance director. I don't know what this will be about. So maybe if I take a quick look, yeah, it's subject issues identified by audit and risk committee. So this exhibit will talk about some issues identified in the audit and risk committee. So, reading the name of the exhibits will give you a fair idea what that exhibit is about. Most of the time, the name of the exhibits are self-explanatory. When you read the requirement, you can easily identify which exhibit might be relevant. For example, in this situation, if the question says, discuss the staffing issues, then I know exhibit 2 and exhibit 3 might be relevant. And if the question says evaluate the supply of bed mattresses, then I know exhibit 1. So it's very easy. I'm talking about this because a lot of students are stressing out. How do we identify the right exhibit? It's extremely easy and straightforward. You just read the name of the exhibit. It is self-explanatory. And then when you read the requirement, you will immediately know which exhibit it pertains to. All right. Is this clear? Any questions on the paper? Okay, couple of more things. So when you can do multitasking. For example, you can open up the word processor. You can reduce the size, take it to one side, and you can open the exhibit. You can reduce the size, take it to one side, and then you can, read, and you can just select. If you want to copy this, you can just select this line, Control C, and here you can just paste it. And then I think this line is important. I want to use in my answer, Control C and Control V. So you can easily copy paste stuff from the exhibit, even from the requirement, right? When you're reading the requirement, you can easily copy paste. If I want to copy the requirement, I'll just copy and I will paste. Okay. But sometimes the copy pasting function does not work sometimes in your exam. In that case, you will need to type the informations. But most of the time, the copy function, pasting function is there. You can open two screens and you can quickly browse through it to save time. The last thing I want to discuss is, if you look at the task, there's only one task mentioned here. Task number 1, worth 34 marks. Where are the rest of the tasks? There are supposed to be 3 tasks, right? So why am I seeing just one task? Because the other task is on another page. So this word processor, this answer sheet is for task number 1. If I want to look at task number 2, I have to scroll down this bar. You see this bar? You have to scroll it down. Then you see this right-hand bar. So both bars need to be scrolled down, and then you can select next. So everything will be same. The exhibits will be same. Pre-scene will be same, but task number will change. Now you can see task number 2, and you will use this particular word processor for task number 2. So there are 3 tasks. So there will be 3 separate word processors you will be using. Do not try to answer all the 3 questions in one word processor. Each task has its own word processor, own slide. Use that. Okay, now if I want to go through the next question, I will scroll down the bars and I will again do next. And I will now see task number 3 worth 28 marks. So guys, you have to be very familiar with the CBE, how it works. Oh, you can easily highlight as well. So you can select this sentence and you can press highlight. So you can highlight the important information as well. So it's not that bad. It can be improved, but I think it's all right. It's manageable. Any questions on the CBE platform before I move back to my slides? Yes, very interesting question, Tameen. If you have highlighted something, let me check now. No, when you highlight something, it will go away when you move to the next task. But then you don't need it, right? Normally it's a 1:1 exhibit. All right. Let's go back. Now, a little bit more on your pre-scene material. So September pre-scene material will be published on 20 August. Remember this date, okay? Our September case study will be published on 20th of August. And you will have to log into your ACCA portal and you can download it from there in PDF format. All right. And I will be conducting a very detailed 2-day workshop once the pre-seen material will be published. So don't worry about it. Okay, guys, now are you guys ready to solve a question? Are you guys ready to attempt the paper? Not at all. Nope, you guys are not ready to attempt the paper. Why? Do you know all the formats? No, I don't know all the formats. So you have to be familiarized with all the formats before we can attempt the paper, right? So let's go through what are the most common formats which are tested in your exam, right? So the first one is called report or briefing paper or briefing note or memo. This is the format which is tested most frequently. 80% of the time, this format is tested in most of the requirements. Either it can be a report, it can be a briefing paper, it can be a briefing note, or a memo. So this simplified format can apply on all these 4 situations. Okay, very simple: to, from, subject, date, and then introduction, and last closure. Okay, and then this is the format, and in between the format, your main answer will be here. Actual requirement, the actual answer will be sandwiched here. But before that, the format template needs to be completed. Okay. Now, sometimes students, they ask, do we need to give conclusion or recommendation? Because it's a report. So towards the end, are we supposed to write a summary or a conclusion? No, not at all. Avoid giving any conclusion or recommendation unless specifically asked in the question. So if the question specifically tells you to give a conclusion, then of course, yes. But if the question is silent, then no need for any conclusion or recommendation. All right. The second format is called section of a report. Very simple. A section of a report means it's not a full report. It is just a portion or an extract from a report. So you will give the heading on top, section of a report. You will just mention the subject. You will just give a quick introduction, what this section of a report is about. You will give a closure, and then your main answer will be sandwiched in between. Okay, you will have to memorize all these various templates. Then sometimes the examiner may ask you to draft an email. No problem. If you are drafting an email, we will give the top heading email to, from, subject, date, introduction, that this email evaluates the proposal, the closure, and then between this, you will sandwich your actual answer from the exhibit. Okay. Now, sometimes the examiner might ask you to prepare a presentation slide. A lot of students, they panic or they struggle with presentation slides, but in reality, it's very simple. So what is a presentation? So when I'm making a presentation, right, to the board, I will have a PowerPoint presentation. On the slide, there will not be lengthy stories on the slide, right? The slide will be just bullet points. Have you seen any real life presentation? The slides will just have bullet points or talking points. There will be no explanation or lengthy stories on the slide. Why? Because the person who is presenting, the speaker, will be talking about those points verbally, right? So the slide itself will only have key points or key pointers or key bullets. Where will be the explanation? So the explanation will be under supporting notes. So in your CBE for template, when you open up the slides, you will see two sections. You will see slide and you will see supporting notes or accompanying notes. So in the slide, you will give the heading. Let's say, for example, HR issues. And what are the HR issues my company is facing? I just gave three high-level bullet points or pointers. High turnover, low staff morale, salaries not aligned with the market. Now, where is the explanation of these? These 3 points will be explained here under supporting notes. So I will expect to see how many paragraphs under supporting notes? 3 paragraphs. Because there are 3 bullets, I would write 3 paragraphs, 1 paragraph for each bullet point, explaining my thoughts, the linking. So your explanation will be in under supporting notes. Do you understand this format? It's very normal, like just like a Word document drafting. The only thing is the subheadings will be on the slide and the paragraph or explanation will be under supporting notes. We are just breaking them up into 2 subsections. Yes, guys, can you please stop chatting amongst yourself? Because I see a lot of group chatting. Purab, Komal, all right, please don't distract and flood the chat box. We have to give headings for the slides. So yeah, so you can either give 3 paragraphs. Okay, you might give a subheading here, or you can actually no need for subheading. You just give the 3 pointers here and just give 3 paragraphs in the right sequence. Examiner will know what you are explaining. All right. Let me open the CBE platform again. Let us open the slide section. So when you will open the slide, you will see slide 1. This is the slide. And then you will see slide 1, speaker note. This is exactly what I showed, right? And then there is slide number 2. For example, 2 slides are required. So the main slide and then the slide number 2, speaker notes, which will contain the explanations. Is that clear? The slide will contain only bullet points and the speaker notes will contain the explanations. Mavish, I will answer that later. All right, I think on one slide, maximum I would give is 3 points. Ideally 2 and maximum 3 bullets on one slide. Okay, good question. Do we put question number? No, no need because examiner knows. All right. Then 1 or 2 times a letter was required. Draft a letter. Very rarely asked, but you should be familiar that if the question says draft a letter, then on the top you will write letter, then you will give the date, you will give the name Dear Hasan Dossani, the subject, this letter and the introduction, closure, and in this middle section, your main answer will be sandwiched. This is the letter format. Then there is something called press release or website release. Again, this has been tested very, very rarely. I think 1 or maximum 2 times in last 3 years. So you might be asked to draft a press release. So again, you need to be, memorize the format. You will give the heading press release. Then you will give the subject, name of chairman or CEO, name of company, date, your opening sentence, and then the closure like this. Okay, it's a different format. So you have to memorize this, and the main body of your answer will be sandwiched in this format. So I will share these slides with you. All right, don't worry. After the webinar tomorrow, I will share these slides so that you can go through the formats. Is that okay? Now, there is something called a business case that you might be asked to prepare a business case. This has been tested only once, and this is more specific to project management related questions. Okay. So when you make a business case, you will give the heading business case, current situation. What is the current situation or problem? You will evaluate what are the various options. So what are the options? And then in the last, your recommendation, which option would you give? So very simple format. A business case will start with the current problem or situation. What are the options we are considering? And finally, which option do you suggest? Okay. Then another important thing is project initiation document. Again, this is a very specific format for project management related question. Okay. So this has been tested 2 or 3 times in the past. But the good news is you will not be required to make a project initiation document. Okay, I will repeat. You will not be required to prepare a project initiation document. In the past, the questions were that a project initiation document was already given to you in an exhibit, and you were supposed to identify the mistakes in it. You understand? So in the past papers, a PID was already given and you were asked to critically assess the content. So if you know what are the contents of a PID, these is right. So the PID contains these items. So these are the contents of a PID. So if you remember what are the contents, then you can easily review the PID provided to you, and you can easily identify if anything is missing or wrong, right? But for that, you will have to know what are the contents of a PID. Okay, we're almost towards the end of the format. Now, this one is very important. And this one is tested many times. It's a very frequently asked topic. So the question will tell you, identify the weakness and give recommendation. Okay, there are many questions in which they have given you data or some information, and they have asked you to identify the weaknesses and give solutions. So whenever you get this type of a question, identify the weakness and give recommendation, try to use a tabular format. It will simplify your answer. Try to use a tabular format. We will make one table, a 2-column table. On the left side, we will mention weakness. On the right side, we will mention recommendation. So here is the weakness and here is the recommendation. Another weakness, another recommendation. You see, one-on-one. Do you know how to make a table in your CBE? In your CBE platform, do you know how to insert a table? No? Very simple. It's just like a Word document. So if I open the word processor, here you will see this icon, table. You see, I will click on this. I will say table. I need how many columns you require? I need 2 columns and I need 5, 6 rows like this. And the table is there. Okay, here I will write weakness, recommendation, and then I will start typing my points. All right, very simple to insert a table. Similarly, you might get a question, identify the risk and give recommendation. So again, we will use the same format, a 2-column table. On the left side, we will identify the risk. On the right side, we will give recommendations. Okay, so whenever you get this kind of a requirement, identify weakness and give recommendation. The word and is very important here. Identify the risk and give. So we will try and use a tabular format. If you don't want to use a tabular format, then you will adopt a paragraph style. In the first paragraph, you will identify the weakness. In the second paragraph, you will give recommendation. But that might get complicated. But if you use a tabular format, it will really simplify and save some time. So now, guys, we are done with the format. So there was a report, briefing paper, briefing note, memo, section of a report, emails, letters, press release, business case, project initiation document, and identify weakness and give recommend the tabular format. So there are like quite a few number of formats. You have to be very hands-on with all the formats because you cannot waste time in the exam making these formats. You have to be very fast, right? All right, any questions on formats? I will share these slides so that you can, go through the format again and again. And when we will do our practice classes, we will come across several formats, so that will also help us memorize. Now, guys, are you now ready for attempt SBL? Now we know all the formats. No, you guys are far from ready. Professional skills. You have to be very familiar with professional skills. Can anybody remind me How many marks professional skills carries in SBL? 20 marks out of 100. 20 marks. And what percentage is it of your paper? What is the percentage weightage of this? Wow. 20% of your paper consists of professional skills. 20% is a lot. You can say a full 20 marks question is only professional skill, right? So you want to score high on this? I think if we score really good in professional skills, it will really increase our chances of passing the paper because 20% of the paper is awesome, right? So you really have to master the professional skills, and when you are drafting, you have to focus on them so that you can score maximum marks for professional skills. Now, the good news is that it is very, very structured, and ACCA has clearly defined what are the professional skills. So there are basically 5 professional skills: analysis skills, evaluation skills, communication skills, commercial acumen skill, and skepticism skill. Okay, these are the 5 which will be tested. So each skill will carry 4 marks because there are 5 skills and 20 marks. So each skill is worth 4 marks. And all these skills are very well defined. It's not difficult to understand. The second good news is that the examiner will clearly tell you which professional skill you need to demonstrate in this particular question. So it's not like you have to demonstrate all of them in one go. For each question, the examiner will clearly give you instructions which skill he wants you to demonstrate. So we exactly know that in this question, we have to demonstrate, let's say, evaluation skill. So we will apply full evaluation skill technique. In the next question, it says demonstrate analysis skills. So for that question, we will fully apply analysis skill techniques. Understood? So it's not an open-ended things. Harshit, please refrain. I don't want casual comments on the group, please. It's distracting me. So let's look at the past paper again. Let's look at task number 1. So task number 1A, it says prepare a report, right? It says prepare a report. So the format is report, which evaluates da. Okay, this is the technical requirement. This is the actual requirement what we are supposed to do. But then if you see underneath it, there is a separate paragraph for professional skills. It's clearly saying professional marks are available for demonstrating analysis skills. So in this particular question, we have to focus more on analysis skills. And then part question number B, 1B, there's a separate instruction. Professional skills are available for communication skills. So in this question or this part, we will focus on communication. So each requirement will have its own professional skill. All right. So now let's go through the professional skills, and after that, we will take a quick break. So the first professional skills is called evaluation skill. Okay, it's very simple. Evaluation skill means we have to evaluate something. In simple words, you have to discuss both pros and cons of that requirement, of that exhibit. Both, we have to include both advantages and disadvantages of, let's say, a proposal, right? So normally evaluation skill is given when there's a proposal, normally. So when we read the proposal, we identify the good points or favorable points. We also identify the bad points, the negative points, the unfavorable points, the risks, the issues. So evaluation skill simply means that you have to include both positives and negatives in your answer. For example, let's evaluate ACCA degree. If the question says evaluate ACCA's degree, so what we will do? We will first identify some good points. What are the advantages of ACCA? It's global, it's popular, employers, they prefer, it has less time, it's easy entry, blah, blah, blah. And then we also have to talk about the disadvantages or the cons of ACCA degree, that, it's a little bit tough, it is expensive, the CB platform sucks, right? So evaluation skill is very simple. You have to include both plus points and minus points. If you include both of them, automatically you will get evaluation skill marks. Is that clear? Is this clear, guys? Sorry, guys. I have a pain in the back, so I'll just change my posture. Clear, right? Okay. Now, there are some little bit complications in this. Now, tell me, supposing according to the marks, we are supposed to write 10 points. Okay, in total, according to the marks, we are supposed to write 10 points. So how many positive points and how many negative points should we give? So all my paid students, they are already aware of this. But the self-study students, okay. So out of 10 points, let's say we are supposed to write 10 points according to the marks. How many positive points and how many negative points? There is no rule. There is no concept of 50-50, like 5 positive and 5 negative. That's very childish. That's very kiddish. It all depends on the availability of information. It all depends on the exhibit. If the exhibit has talked about more advantages and less disadvantages, I will just follow that. Like it can be 7 advantages or 8 advantages and 2 disadvantages. Doesn't matter. It all follows the exhibit. It can be the other way around. 2 advantage and 8 disadvantage. So there is no rule of 50-50. It all depends on the information provided in the exhibit. Is this clear? Okay, good. I'm deliberately going a bit slow because there are lots of self-study students here as well, and people who are looking at SBL for the first time. Um, Another interesting twist is sometimes the examiner says critically evaluate. Sometimes he says critically evaluate the proposal, critically evaluate the option. Critically means to criticize. Critically means to criticize. Criticize means to identify mistakes or to identify the bad things. Criticize karna, burai karna. Okay? When the question specifically says critically evaluate, then we have to focus more on the negative sides, the issues, the disadvantages, the cons. Then you have to specifically pick up maximum number of disadvantages rather than focusing on the advantages. Is that clear? The word critically evaluate means you have to focus more on negative points. If it is just saying simple evaluate, then we will include both pros and cons depending on the information available. But if it says critically evaluate, then I would identify issues. Any questions? We are done with evaluation skills. Dakshita, I will cover that. Hold your horses. Yeah, you can skip the pros completely. Yeah, that's fine. Or if you want, just give one pro, or you can skip the pros completely for critically evaluate. Up, it all depends how many points are there. Guys, can you please stop Dakshita, Lakshmi, Nuzat, DV? Either you guys can take over and start teaching or let me cover. I know you want to help these guys, but I will cover everything. All right, now coming to analysis skills. Again, it is very simple. Analysis skills means to identify the reason or the root cause of any issue. Okay? To investigate the reason. For example, if our sales revenue goes down, the board will ask why our revenue has gone down, right? So when you identify the whys, what are the reasons? That is analysis skills. Analysis skills simply means that we identify the reasons or we investigate the reasons or the root causes of the problem. For example, if our customer satisfaction rating has reduced from 90% to 70%, is that good or bad? If our customer satisfaction rating reduced from 90 to 70%, that's bad, right? So do you think the board will really ask why that has gone down? Of course, the leadership, the management will be really concerned. So then we will have to identify the reasons why the customer satisfaction is going down. So from where can we find the reasons? From where can we find the reasons? Yeah, information will be there in the exhibit. You will need to search for it, pick it up, and explain it in your answer that by these are the reasons. As long as you identify the correct reasons, automatically you will score analysis skills, because analysis skills, the examiner wants to see whether you can identify the reasons or the root causes, right? So what do you think can be the reasons for a decline in customer satisfaction? Any possible logical reason? bad quality of the product, bad customer service, bad staff behavior, poor after sales. Amazing, guys. Late delivery. That's interesting. Yeah, absolutely correct. High price. Okay, interesting. Yeah, why not? All right. So you know the general reasons, but you will not be able, you will not write general reasons in your answer. You will have to look in the exhibit and pick up the information, right? Any questions on analysis skills? Is that clear? Analysis skills. The third one is called communication skill. You think a good CFO should have nice communication skill? Any good professional communication skill is very basic, right? Why is it important? It's important because if we have good communication skill, we will be able to communicate our thoughts, our points properly to the board, right? Right. So that's what the examiner wants to see, that how you are drafting, are you able to explain your thoughts in simple English? If the examiner is not able to understand your drafting, that means your communication skill is weak. So when we talk about communication skill, it means using the formats. So all the formats which we saw, they are all part of communication skill. We have to draw proper professional format. Okay. Then we have to keep our role in mind, whether we are an internal person, whether we are an external person, the way we are drafting, our tone, our language. So again, nothing extra needs to be done on this. As long as we give a proper format, as long as we remember our role, and we are explaining in our points in simple language, we are able to communicate our thoughts, it's done. Nothing extra needs to be done. All right, pretty easy, this one. Just keep your role in mind, make the proper format, and the tone of drafting and the language of drafting should be professional, easy to understand, and complete. Any questions on communication? Am I able to communicate my points to you properly? है ना? But this, I'm not doing anything extra. I'm just trying to use simple language and trying to explain to you in simple manner. That's communication. As long as you are understanding, that's what we want. That's what we want from the examiner, that he understands our draft and our point. Correct? The fourth one is commercial acumen. A lot of students, they really stress out, or they feel that they don't have this skill. But it's not correct. All of you have commercial acumen. It's just that you don't know it. Now, what is the meaning of commercial acumen? In simple word, it means, do you have business sense? Okay, commercial acumen simply means, do you have business sense? Are you just a debit credit accountant, Or do you understand the larger picture or the different areas of the business? That's it. So, do you think a good accountant or a good CFO should understand the business? Definitely, right? Even if you are a good accountant, it means that you understand the business. How? Because an accountant, he prepares the budget, right? We guys, you know how to make a budget? I'm sure you have done it in some previous subject, right? Preparing a master budget, F5, okay. So, when we make a budget, there will be revenue, there will be some cost of sale, there will be some overheads. So, when we prepare a budget, we do understand the company, right? How the revenue will flow in, what are the revenue drivers, how do we calculate the costs? So, you do know. So, commercial acumen again is very simple, that you have to demonstrate to the examiner that you understand business. You are just not a stupid accountant. You understand how the business works. For example, can you give me some names? Can you name some departments or functions other than finance? HR, IT, procurement, sales, marketing, inventory, production, R&D, supply chain, legal, warehouses, commercial. I'm just reading your answers. Internal audit, compliance, tax, treasury, I think is finance, but okay. Tax is again finance, but okay. Administration, yes. Done. Logistics, very good. Done. You guys know the business, huh? You know what are the various components. So, do you know anything about marketing? Do you know anything about marketing? Yes. We know what marketing is. For example, how can we do marketing? Physical marketing. Tell me some examples of physical marketing. Physical marketing. Give me some examples of physical marketing. Newspaper, radio, TV, billboards, magazines, flyers, brochures. Can you give me some examples of e-marketing? Here you go. Social media, search engines, websites, influencers. Excellent. Emails, yeah. Facebook, LinkedIn. Done. You know marketing. Do you know anything about HR? HR deals with what? Staffing, recruitment, salaries, surveys, training, payroll, firing. Done. Excellent. Motivation and morale. That's very good. Appraisal. That's good. Yeah. All right. So you guys know commercial acumen. Again, in the exam, nothing extra needs to be done. If you just talk about based on the information available in the exhibit, you're talking about losing customers, you're talking about losing revenues, you're talking about big data and e-marketing. Automatically, these are commercial acumen. Okay, so you can use words like customers, competition, market share, strengths, weakness, opportunities, threats, risks, technology, marketing, HR, planning, goals, objective. All these are business related words. When you talk about these, automatically you will get commercial acumen. All right, guys, any questions on commercial acumen? I don't want to hear that we don't know commercial acumen. You know it. All right, good. The last one is skepticism skill. This is the last professional skill, skepticism. Do you know the meaning of skepticism or being skeptical? What does skepticism means? Doubt, questioning mind. Skepticism means questioning mind. You think a good CFO should have a questioning mind? Definitely, right? Of course, he should have a skepticism mind. A good CFO, should not accept everything on face value. Otherwise, everybody will make a fool out of him, right? For example, if the marketing director comes and tells me, Mr. CFO, can you please process a payment of $100,000 towards marketing? And I will say, yes, sir. Is that correct? What do you will ask? The reason, why do you make this payment? Right, right. He will say, I want to make this payment to run a campaign in the social media. He will give you the reason that I will make I re I, you know I will run a campaign on the social media. So you will ask him, okay, that's good, I like it, but what will it lead to? Will it lead to any incremental revenue? Because I'm responsible for costs, right? As a CFO, I have to manage a budget. So I will ask him, will it lead to, what will be the benefit of it? Will it lead to incremental revenue? He will say, yes, of course, it will lead to incremental revenue. Then I will ask him, all right, can you demonstrate to me or explain to me what is your rationale? How are you so convinced? Can you just explain to me how it will lead to incremental revenue? Because I want to understand the basic assumption. So this is a skepticism mind that I will keep on questioning till I'm satisfied. Skepticism. Clear? So skepticism, there are 2 or 3 ways to demonstrate in your exam. Number one, you can ask questions. When we are doing skepticism, we will ask questions. So you have to draft your answer in a questioning tone. Put a question mark. I mean, you can say, what is the rationale for this? Question mark. Can you ask questions? Yeah, I'm sure you know how to ask a question, right? The second technique is you can use words like I disagree, or it's incorrect, or it's not clear, or it's unknown. So you can disagree with something. So when you disagree, that is also showing skepticism that no, I don't think it's correct. I think I disagree with you because of this reason. So whenever you challenge someone, you disagree with someone, you question someone, All these are skepticism. In your exam, when the question says demonstrate skepticism, make sure that when you are drafting, adopt a questioning tone, adopt, a challenging tone. You can use words like I disagree or it's incorrect. You can use such, you have to use such words in your answer to demonstrate that you have that questioning mind or you have the guts to disagree or challenge someone. Is this clear? Skepticism. Okay. I think that probably skepticism is slightly difficult than the other four skills. For the other four skills, they are very simple: evaluation, analysis, communication, commerce. Nothing extra needs to be done. But when we talk about skepticism, you have to deliberately change the way you draft. You have to consciously change the way you are drafting so that you can ask question or you can use the word I disagree. Don't forget, okay? All right. So guys, do you want a break? Because after the break, I want to talk about exam techniques, the most important topic for today, exam techniques. So let's take a break so that you come back with a fresh mind. Okay. So it's like 7:37 in Dubai. So let's take a 18-minute break. 47, 50, so 7:55. I will see you. Okay, a break of 17, 18 minutes. I will see you back, guys, at 7:55 Dubai time. Please calculate your own time, 17, 18 minutes from now. Okay. Who has messed up my screen? I don't know what's happening. All right, guys. Are you back? Shall we start? All right, just two more segments remaining for tonight. One is exam techniques, and one is a discussion with high scorer for June so that we can understand their do's and don'ts. So I think maximum 1 hour more. Okay. So now let's start with exam techniques. Extremely important. Okay. Because why is exam technique important? Because whatever practice, hard work, long hours you have given before the exam, you have to actually perform in that 3 hours and 15 minutes. If you have performed well in that 3 hours, 15 minutes, you will pass. If you have not performed well, if you got stressed out, you will not pass, even though you have worked really hard. So actually the output will be measured how you really perform in those 3 hours and 15 minutes, right? So the exam techniques are there to make sure that you perform your best during those 3 hours and 15 minutes. So the first and foremost thing is time management. Why is it the first and foremost item which I picked up? Because time management is the number one priority. If you attempt 80, 85 marks paper, you will most likely never pass. But if you attempt 95 to 100 marks paper, then the chances of passing is really high. So time management is the number one thing which you need to focus. So, we all know that the allowed time is 3 hours and 15 minutes. So the first 15 minutes, you can play around with the paper. When you start your CBE paper on your exam day, as I told you, there will be some additional information given to you, right? And all the tasks will be given to you. So I want you to go through the tasks, not the exhibit. I want you that before you start drafting, you should go through all the requirements, correct? Because then you would know what exactly are the topics being questioned. So in the first 15 minutes, what you will do? The first thing is you will copy paste all tasks in the scratch pad. So on the CBE platform, there is a scratch pad given. So I want you to copy paste all the tasks on the scratch pad. Why? Why do we need to copy all the tasks on the scratch pad? Any idea? Because it will take 2 minutes, right? Identify the topics. Yeah, very good. Because all the requirements are not on one screen. You remember only task number 1 was appearing. If you want to see task number 2, you have to go to next screen. And task number 3, again next screen. So by the time you go to task number 3, you will forget what you read in task number 1, right? It's too much. We cannot retain too much information, right? So instead of wasting time going to and from changing screens, it's better that we quickly copy paste everything under one roof so that then we can go through it in a logical and efficient manner, right? So how do we do it? Let me open the paper. Okay, for example, this was the paper. Do you see scratch pad anywhere? Yeah, here. I will open the scratch pad. I will reduce the size. I will take it on one corner. Then I will open the task number 1. I will just copy the technical requirement and not the professional skills. I will deal with that later. So this one and then B. So I copy pasted 1A and 1B. I will close this. I will go to the next screen, task number 2. I will again go to the scratch pad. Okay. And then task number B. Done. And then task number 3. It will maximum take you 2 minutes. But it's worth it. I'm done. So now I have copy pasted everything on scratch pad. 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, and 3A, 3B. Only the technical requirement, not the professional marks or any extra thing. I want to keep it short and focused. So 1A says prepare a report for evaluate the opportunities and challenges in relation to the proposed health contract with Zealand. So there's something to do with Zealand. Then we have to comply with EMAS, environmental policy. Okay, EMAS and environmental policy, it is part B. Part A is to do something with the proposed contract with Zealand. 1B is to do with environmental policy. 2A is to do with staff survey and something to do with talent management program. 2A and 2B. 2A is staff survey, 2B is talent management program. 3A is benefit from using online customer data and big data analytics. Okay. And weakness and give recommendations. So now I know that, these are the total requirements. Is that clear? It will take 2 minutes. Then we will read all the tasks and identify the topics. Then we will take a quick look at each exhibit and note exhibit number on the scratch pad. Do not read the exhibit in detail. So now I know that task number 1A was to do with Zealand Health contract. So which exhibit you think is more relevant to the Zealand Health contract proposal? Exhibit 1. So I will write here exhibit 1 just for my notes. Which one? So the second 1B is about environmental policy and EMAS. Do you see any exhibit on environmental policy and EMAS? One is mattress, staff survey, human resource. This is the talent management, and this is the control weakness. So any exhibit on environmental policy? So there's no exhibit. Give me a straight answer, yes or no? No exhibit. So I will leave this. Then staff survey. 1A, one is staff survey. Which exhibit? Exhibit 2. And this one is about talent management program by the human resource director. Which exhibit? Exhibit 3. Now, is there any? Yeah. So now data analytics and internal control weaknesses. So if you take a quick look here, this exhibit has something about data and weaknesses. So I know that question number 3 is all about exhibit 4. So I quickly identified and mapped the relevant exhibits. So 1A is exhibit 1. There is no exhibit for 1B. 2A is exhibit 2. 2B is exhibit 3. And 3A and B, both of them are exhibit 4. Is this clear so far? That this is all part of initial few minutes when we are planning. First of all, we copy pasted the requirements on the scratch pad. Then we went through the requirements. Then we look at the list of exhibits and we try to identify which exhibit to which question. All done. So now I know that exhibit, the question number 1B does not have any exhibit. So that's very scary, right? Because when there is an exhibit, it's easy for us to read the exhibit and identify points. But when there is no exhibit, then we have to use the pre-scene, we have to use the overall, we have to cook up something, right? All right, done. So all this, and then decide the sequence of your answer. That's more important. Decide the sequence of your answer, meaning which question will you attempt first and which question will you attempt in the last. So depending how strong your topic is It is a bit judgmental, but you will need to decide that, okay, this looks easy. I should start with that. So all this planning should be in the first 10 minutes. Normally 10 minutes is more than enough. I would not like to use full 15 minutes. 8 to 10 minutes, you will be able to easily do all these things. So which question should we do in last? What do you think in this? 1B. 1B, right? The EMAS and the environmental policy question. Exactly, because there is no exhibit to it. So for sure, I will push 1B towards the end. I will not do it in the middle or in the start. I will not follow the sequence. I will do it in the end. And then which question should I start with? I mean, it's very judgmental. 1A is a common sense question because there is a proposal and we need to identify the pros and cons. For me, it's easy, but you might decide to start with HR, staff survey one, or even question number 3, in which big data analytics, pros and cons of big data and internal. So I think I can start with question number 3 first, because I know the disadvantages of big data and internal control weaknesses. Again, it's a common sense question. I will identify the weakness and give recommendation. So all this thought process, it will vary from student to student, right? So all this is part of initial planning. You must always start with the easiest question in your view. Okay, so all this is first 10 minutes. Once you are done with this, you have decided the sequence, then you can immediately start the drafting. So the allowed drafting time is 1.8 minutes per total marks. Okay, so how do we calculate total marks? For example, task number 3. Let me go back to task number 1. Task number 1A is 16 marks, technical requirement, and 4 marks, professional requirement. So total marks is 20 marks. Task number 1A is 20 marks, right? So how many minutes will you allocate to task number 1A? 36 minutes. Exactly. So 20 marks multiplied by 1.8 minute per mark. Right. So we know that 1A we have to complete in 36 minutes. Now, when do we read the exhibit? Because exhibit 1 is there, right? So the reading of the exhibit is also part of 36 minutes. When do we make the format? Because we have a format, a report format there. Again, it's part of 36 minutes. So this 36 minutes is all inclusive. You have to read the requirement properly. You have to make the format. Then you will have open up exhibit 1, because we know that exhibit 1 is for 1A. We will read the exhibit and then we will draft our answer. All this in 36 minutes. 36 minutes is just not for drafting, right? You have to read the proper requirement, you have to make the format, you have to read the related exhibit, and then the drafting. All this in 36 minutes. Is that clear? Now, do you think it will be challenging that doing all this in 36 minutes? Definitely yes. That I have to read the requirement, then I have to make the format, then I have to read the relevant exhibit, and then write points. 36 minutes is tough, believe me. 36 minutes, it's tough. It will take you like 45 minutes, 50 minutes. That is why students, they fall in time trap. Okay, when they exceed the allowed time, they fall in time trap. So what is this? Stop drafting and move to the next question as soon as the allowed time is up. So the allowed time for 1A was 36 minutes. I will try my best to do maximum in this, but supposing 36 minutes are up and still you have not written the required number of points, what should we do? You should not overspend the time. You should not fall in the time trap. You just complete that one paragraph and you should move to the next question. You should move to the next question. Leave that question incomplete and move. It is easier said than done. It requires a lot of guts and boldness to leave, but for the time being, leave it and move on. Okay, because I don't want to disturb the timing for my remaining questions. All right. Is time management technique clear? The first few minutes, the 10 minutes of planning, and then how do we allocate time, and then how to manage it, and what to do if the allowed time is up. Very, very important slide. The next thing is linking with the exhibit. So as the examiner said that a lot of students, they write general answers and they do not refer to the exhibit. So we have to base our answer on the given exhibit, right? So it's very simple. When you read the exhibit, you are supposed to identify some key points, like some main advantages and disadvantages. When you will read, you will identify some pros and cons of this proposal. And then you can, copy paste those key lines on your answer sheet, and then you can elaborate on it. Okay, always start your point with a statement of fact which is copy pasted from the exhibit. Once you pick up a point from the exhibit, automatically you will elaborate on it, right? Now, the thing is this one. A lot of students, they ignore the exhibit and they write their answers based on pre-seen. That's wrong, because the examiner expects you to focus more on the additional information to solve your answer, right? So please, we have to rely on exhibits. Around 80 to 90% of our points should come out from the exhibit, and only 10 to 20% point from the pre-seen. Okay, our primary document to focus is the exhibit, not the pre-seen. Pre-seen is just the background information. More specific and relevant information is given in the exhibit. So 80%, 90% of our drafting will be from the exhibit. Only where there are certain gaps We are not finding sufficient number of points from the exhibit. Only in that case, we will use pre-seen information, but that only restricted to 10 or 20%. All right. Okay. The third aspect of exam techniques is to decide the number of points. How many points are we supposed to write? So it all depends on the marks. So normally I follow this rule that a well-drafted point carries 2 marks. It's worth 2 marks. So if the question is worth 10 marks, how many points should we give? 5. Yes. Don't write minimum 5, at least 5. No, 5 points. 10 divide by 2, 5. We should give 5 paragraphs or 5 points. If you are not able to find 5 points, then at least 4 points. Zakaria, please don't demonstrate skepticism. Okay. If we are supposed to give 5 points, if you are not able to find 5 points, then at least 4 points should be there. Total marks divide by 2. Simple formula. Please keep it simple. Clear? Now, if the question is worth 13 marks, what do we do? 13 divided by 2 is 6.5. All right. So here we will give 6 to 7 points. Depending on the time, depending on the availability of information, minimum 6 points, maximum 7 points, 6 to 7. Good. Now come to a slight complication. You remember there are questions, identify weakness and give recommendation. For this kind of question, we use a tabular format. Remember that many times the examiner will ask you identify the weakness and give recommendation. So for this kind of question, 2 marks for the weakness and 2 marks for recommendation, right? Because for 1 point carries 2 marks. So here we are supposed to write 2 things. We have to first talk about the weakness and then we have to give recommendation. So 2 marks each is okay, right? So here in this type of question, we will divide by 4. Total marks divide by 4 because we have to give a weakness and we have to give the recommendation. So 2 plus 2 is 4. So in deciding how many weaknesses we are supposed to write, we will divide total marks by 4. So let's look at this question. I remember there was a question number, task number 3. In task number 3B, it says, evaluate the potential impact of the weaknesses identified in the internal control activities and recommend actions to address. Very classic type of a question that here we are supposed to discuss the weakness and also give recommendation. So the moment you read this type of a question, identify the weakness and give recommendation, immediately I know that it will be a tabular format. On one side, the weakness, on the other side, the recommendation, and I have to divide by total marks by 4. So what is the total marks for this? 12 plus 4, 16. 16 divided by 4 is 4. So we have to identify 4 weaknesses and then also give 4 recommendations. So total 8 points, right? 2 8s are 16. Good. So we have to identify only 4 weaknesses and then also give their recommendation. So 4 weakness, 4 recommendation. Clear? It may sound a bit complicated, but it is not. The moment you read this a requirement that identify the weakness and give recommendation, table format, and total marks divided by 4. So that we calculate how many weakness are we supposed to look for. 4 weaknesses and 4 recommendations. Good. Same applies for the risk one. If the question says identify the risk and give recommendation. So whenever there are 2 requirements merged together, we divide by 4, right? Got 2 marks for the weakness or risk and 2 marks for the recommendation. Again, guys, you are talking about conclusion. We are not supposed to give conclusion unless specifically asked. Don't spread confusion, please. More clarity will come when we start the practice classes, right? I'm just giving you a basic framework right now. I don't want to go into hypothetical discussions at this stage because it will confuse you. Just focus on the basic framework. And then in the revision classes, which will start from Tuesday, we will face all these things because we will be solving real life papers, past papers, right? So that stage, we can seek more clarity and all right. So any questions on the number of points? It's very simple. Total marks divide by 2. Then if it is a weakness recommendation question, total marks divide by 4. That's it. Basic formulas. Now the format of your answer. How do you draft your point? What should be the size or length of your points? The first thing is before you actually start drafting, you must prepare the skeleton of the answer. What do I mean by prepare the skeleton of the answer? The format. If it's a report format, make the format, give the broad heading so that you're out of the format and then you can focus on the real answer. Each point should always start with a opening sentence or a punchline from the exhibit. Is that clear? Then each and every paragraph, each and every point that we start should first have a sentence from the exhibit and then we can elaborate on it. This is how we will link with the scenario, right? So the first sentence will be a punchline picked up from the exhibit. And then in 1 line or 2 line, you can elaborate on it. You can talk about the impact or the reason or whatever is required. All right. What should be the size of your paragraph or size of your point? Maximum 3 to 4 lines. I think 4 is also a lot. 3 lines answer is enough. A paragraph, 3-line paragraph. So 1 point should be 1 paragraph. So if there are 5 points, there should be 5 paragraphs. Each paragraph should not be more than 3 lines. Okay, short and brief answer. I don't want you to write detailed, elaborative points. Short to the point answers. 3, maximum 4 lines, but ideally 3 lines, and you must move out to the next point. Also try to give a subheading for each point. So each point subheading will get you extra marks, right? So whatever is the point, just give a small 2 word, 3 word heading, and then you start that point. Leave one line between each paragraph or each point. So don't jumble up your answer. Try to give some gaps between each point so that the examiner can clearly see that you have drafted 5 points or 5 paragraphs. It will look nice, neat and clean and professional. So try to leave one line between each point. Okay. And this one, last one is nil or minimum use of models. Some of the students, especially the theoretical students, they deliberately try to use models as much as they can. No, avoid models as much as possible, right? Yes, there are certain topics which requires models like pastel, porter, uh, culture. But that said, don't try to use model in each and every question. Only wherever it is absolutely necessary, there you will use a model. Otherwise, you will just give a logical, straightforward answer. All right. Any questions? All this we will be applying in our practice classes. All right. So just right now, just understand the basic rules and the framework, and then we will practically apply all these when we are doing the past papers. The last topic for exam technique is called a bouncer question. Do you know what a bouncer question is? Can you guess? Bouncer question is a question which has no exhibit. So a bouncer question is one which has no direct exhibit. So in one of so did we saw a bouncer question in the CB platform right now? Which one was it? 1B, yeah, the EMAS and the environmental policy. So that's a bouncer question, easily a bouncer question because there is no information or no exhibit. Now, where the hell will we get our information when there is no exhibit, right? So what do we do? How do we handle bouncer question? Number one, we will attempt this question in the last. We all agreed, right? We will start with the easiest question first, and then we will park the bouncer question for the last. And then, you can talk about what is an environmental policy. A little bit filling of space. So do you know what's an environmental policy? So environmental policy or environmental footprint. Have you not done the top 25? Please recall the top 25. Was there a section on environmental footprint? There were 3 points. You have to memorize the top 25. What are the 3 points under environmental policy or environmental footprint? Number one, responsible use of scarce resources, recycling and waste products, and third one is pollution. Done. So if you remember those, you can give three, you can talk about each of them in your answer. And with the pre-seen knowledge, you can try and link with the scenario because we do have the pre-seen information, right? There must be something in the background relating to environment, relating to pollution, relating to scarce resource, relating to carbon. So using that information, I will just play around a little bit. Correct? But the main thing is, should we use the entire allowed time on this stupid question? So for example, what was the marks for this question? 1B. Oh, let me check. Ananya, just give me 5 minutes. The marks for 1B was 10 plus 4, 14 marks. Okay. 14 marks means how many minutes? 14 multiplied by 1.8, around 25 minutes. Right? 1.8, yeah. So should we use the entire 25 minutes for this question where there is no direct information? What will a smart CFO do? A smart CFO will try to save 10 minutes or 15 minutes and go back and add more points to the easier questions, right? Do you understand? Especially question number 1, which was the easier. If I had left that incomplete due to time management, I'll now go back and add my missing points to complete those. At least those will get you guaranteed marks. So do you understand the technique of bouncer question? We have to attempt in the last. We will just try to talk high level, few points, trying to use background pre-seen information, but we will not consume the entire time. We will just wrap it up quickly. Maybe a short answer, incomplete answer, that's fine. And then I will save some time, go back to my easier questions and add more points which has guaranteed marks. Again, it is easier said than done. The global winners, the high scorers, they actually apply this technique. That's the difference between them and a normal student. The high scorers, they have the guts, they have the boldness to be ruthless and strictly apply these techniques. And normal students, they panic and they forget the techniques, they lose their time management, and then you know what happens to them. Right. Okay. So now, guys, we are done with the exam techniques. Just a very quick recap. That first technique was time management. The first 10 minutes, you will do your planning and then you will start your drafting. 1.8 minute per marks. And as soon as the allowed time is up, you will move to the next question. Linking with the exhibit, we will always try to use a punchline or a statement of fact picked up from the exhibit and then elaborate on it. Number of points, very straightforward. We divide by 2 or we divide by 4. The format of your answer will be paragraph style. Each point will be one paragraph. The length should be 3 lines approximately. And then the bouncer question that we will do in the last. We will just try to write some basic things from the pre-scene, and we will save time and go back and finish the previous incomplete answers to get guaranteed marks. Mavish, forget about point 3. We don't have that much time, okay, in the exam. Now, we have with us Miss Ananya from India. She was the highest scorer in my June batch, 87 marks. Amazing score. And let's hear from her live. What did she do? Did she actually apply all these techniques? How did she handle bouncer question? How did she manage her time management? So, do you want to listen to her live experience? She just did it 3 months back. All right, Ananya, let me allow you. Ananya, yeah, I can see you. Let me unmute you. Or let me make you a co-host. Okay. So now, Ananya, you can unmute, and if you are comfortable, you can have your webcam on as well. All right, let me. All right, Ananya, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Ananya, thank you so much for joining. I know it's a bit late in India right now.
Yes, sir. It's a
So,
little late, but it's nice to be here.
yeah, there are like 300 plus students right now globally listening to you. So, whatever you will say will, I'm sure, will help so many students, and you will have a small part, you will play a role in their success directly or indirectly. So, how many marks you scored? Do you remember?
Sir, 87.
Excellent. So were you working at that time or you were a full-time student?
So I was a full-time student.
Full-time student. So tell me about the preparation phase. So in the last 4 weeks, what was your preparation strategy? How many hours you used to give?
So for preparation, I just did the 5 to 6 full papers we did in the class. And the theory was your top 25 notes. And the pre-scene classes we did, the material you gave to us then.
Excellent, excellent. So I will just repeat what she said, that in the last 4 weeks for the theory bit, she was focusing on the top 25 notes. And for the practice, she just did the 6 or 7 questions we did in the live classes, and she focused on the pre-scene. So, Ananya, the 6 and 7 questions, whatever we did, that was sufficient
Yes, sir, it was more than sufficient for the exam.
because a lot of students ask me, Sir, is that enough? And I don't know what to tell to them.
I think it's more than enough because after one or two question, it just starts to get repetitive, and
Mm.
the exam technique is the most important. So if you can like understand how to do it, you can do any question easily.
Exactly, because the paper becomes repetitive. There are quite some topics which are repeated frequently in the exam. And as long as you understand the technique, how to pick up the punchline, how to draft, the technique never changes. The case study will change, but the technique always remain the same. So you guys will need to learn the technique and not the case study. Once you know the technique, the case study, whatever industry, you will be able to do it. Right, Ananya?
Yes, sir.
Right. So now tell me about the exam day. Were you stressed out?
Yes, sir. I was like really stressed out because this was my last exam and I just wanted to pass this.
What did you do to manage the stress? Is there any technique?
So I tried to book like the earliest slot available to me. I gave remote, so it was around like 12 p.m. But in the morning, I was actually using social media instead of revising. But
Sorry, come again. What did you say in the last?
in the morning of the exam, I didn't revise at all. I was just using social media that day.
All right. So social media will stress you out more because though so many students are asking crazy questions on the last day.
No, sir, I blocked all the apps where, like, people could ask
Oh,
questions.
no.
Yeah, like, sir, in the groups where people were asking questions, I just like blocked them, put them on mute and stuff.
That's I'm hearing for the first time. That's a good strategy because last moment so many students are panicking and asking scary questions on the WhatsApp group. You actually stopped watching those to reduce your stress.
Yes,
Wow,
sir.
that's very interesting. Now in the 3 hours and 15 minutes, were you able to complete the paper?
Yes, sir, I was able to complete it. I had time left in the end.
Are you a fast reader or a fast typist?
No, sir.
You are a slow reader, slow thinker, and a slow typist, like a normal, average person, right?
Yes, sir.
So how you were able to complete the paper? It's so challenging.
So I followed your strategy. I went through all the requirements first and I picked out the one like I could do it easily. And then I just went to the exhibits and wherever I found like relevant information, I just copy pasted it and I was editing it. So I just tried to
You-
finish as much as I can.
So supposing if the allowed time was up for any question, did you jump to the next question or were you able to give the required number of points within time?
For most of the question, I was able to do it within time, but where I couldn't, I switched questions.
You switched, so you moved on.
Yes, sir.
So you didn't sat there and cried and wasted time.
No, sir.
So you had the guts and the balls to move on and leave that incomplete.
Yes.
Wow. Wow. And was there a bouncer question in your attempt? Like there was no exhibit or the requirement was very crazy.
Yes, sir, there was a question. Like the exhibit didn't have any information related.
So what did you do with the bouncer question then?
I left it for the end, so big, and by the time I had read all the exhibits, so I had a pretty much good idea about the company. So I just like write what I could relate with the information, and then I went and scanned the pre-seen ones again for the bouncer question. I write what I could, and the other stuff I typed what I could think of in like general situation. What should a company do?
Nice, because this didn't occur to me. But if we do bouncer in the last, by the so we will have some information and then supported with pre-seen, we will be able to write something interesting. And did you spend the entire time on bouncer or you came back and completed the incomplete ones?
I came back and did the incomplete questions.
Oh, so you did not use the entire bouncer time. You just spent some time and then you moved to other questions.
Yes, sir.
Wow. That's a lot of presence of mind you are showing during that 3 hours. Tell me about your drafting. When you draft a point, how big is it? How many lines? Is it lengthy? Is it brief?
My points were 2 line max. I used to keep like an average of 1.5, but 2 was the maximum I go.
Really? Can you repeat that? Because others will ask me, is that enough?
Like 2 is the maximum you need to go. Just try to keep it to 1.5. But if you have to write, 2 is the limit.
2 lines.
Yes, sir.
Are you sure?
Yes, sir.
How many marks you scored?
87.
So you scored 87 by writing brief points, maximum 2 lines.
Yes, sir.
And the maximum 2 lines includes the statement of fact as well,
Yes, sir.
the punchline.
Yes, sir.
Really? This guys, this 2 lines is including the punchline. So now you can imagine how she was able to complete the paper. And with these 2 lines, she managed to score 87. Okay, I don't want stupid comments. I want you to just digest and understand that rather than trying to be extra skeptical. Okay, this is for your benefit to clear your doubts that we have a person with 87 marks and her answer was maximum 2 lines per point, including the punchline. That's crazy actually. I was telling them 3 lines.
So I remember like the life classes you used to scold us for long points.
Yeah, I definitely scored for long points, but 2 lines. So it's an eye opener for me as well that you are a living proof. What more evidence we require that you scored 87 with 2 lines? Because students they like to write 5 lines and 6 lines, and they don't complete the paper. So is that a good strategy?
No, sir, like completing the paper is the most important thing because like I cannot score a 50 out of 70, but I can score a 50 out of 100% attempted paper.
Interesting. And did you focus on models? Did you use a lot of models?
No, sir, I didn't use any model in the exam.
Really?
Yes, sir.
You didn't use any model.
No, sir. So the
You just
questions
gave like
were,
logical answers.
yes, sir. So the questions were like you cannot use a model if you wanted to. So
Okay. So if we don't try to use models unnecessarily unless absolutely necessary, right?
yes, sir.
Right. So you how many okay, I will guys, I will take questions. Give me 5 minutes. I will take your questions. So what else I wanted to you mentioned before in the post result session that you practiced all the questions 2 times.
Yes, sir.
So you did 6 or 7 case studies in the live class, and then you solved them on your own under time conditions,
Yes, sir.
and you did not solve them once, but you solved them twice.
Yes, sir.
All of them,
Yes, sir. All of them.
almost. So that's very interesting, guys, that the 6 or 7 questions we did in the live class, Ananya actually solved them under time conditions, not only once, but twice. So I think that really helps because when she knows the grip, she knows the answers, she knows the past papers because topics are repeated. Very interesting. Okay. So I guess This is all I wanted to check with you. So let me go through some questions. Ameen's last month strategy. What was your last month strategy, Ananya?
So I focused on doing the questions mostly to practice the exam technique, and I was revising your top 25 notes.
Exactly. So the last month strategy is very simple. Top 25 revision for theoretical concepts, and then practice the questions we will do in the live classes. If you can do the practice 2 times, best, but at least 1 time you have to draft them under time conditions. Okay. How many papers you practice? She already said 6 to 7 papers. She actually followed the revision class. So the papers which I have selected, she just did that. Which questions? The same questions which I had given in the revision class. So you have that plan, right? What else? I'm just browsing through your comments. Okay, Ananya, are you there?
Yes, sir.
So some students want to know that when you draft a two-liner, how do you draft it? Like, how can you do it in 2 lines?
It's mostly like you take the punchline, so that's not more than like 4 or 5 words from the exhibit, and then you just elaborate on it. So like first is what would be the impact on the company. It's usually like a reputation issue or a financial loss. So you write that and like give one more impact in addition to it.
All that in 2 lines?
Yes, sir.
So you think the impacts are repetitive, right?
Yes, sir.
Like impact can be on revenue, it can be on cost, it can be on reputation, it can be on competition. Some just standard 7, 8 impacts are there. Can you repeat the impacts in the paper?
There was a loss of reputation and customers. This one is like the most repetitive. Then there could be financial loss and uh, problems related to non-compliance with government regulations.
Right, right. Any more question, guys? Ananya has taken out some, precious time for us. So, guys, Ananya was part of my revision. She attended the revision. So we all discussed the answers and the drafting in the class, and then she did it on her own. So she was not a self-study student, right? Ananya, did you focus on technical articles?
Sir, I just did the one you covered in the grand revision and webinar. You gave like a PDF to us.
Okay, so you did not do technical articles on your own. You just focused on the ones which I covered in my webinar, right?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. All right. Good. Ananya, just I'm going through some questions. Did you read all the exhibits before you started, or did you just did the exhibit as you went along with the question?
As I went along with the questions, sir.
As I went. So, guys, she actually followed the entire technique which I just discussed with you few minutes back, right? Excellent. So, Ananya, thank you so much for joining and sharing your. Oh, Ananya, did you do the study hub?
No, sir. Absolutely not.
No, sir. All right. And how many times the hours you were studying in the last week?
Sir, I didn't categorize it with us. I had target of questions. So, like the one day you gave us break, my target was to complete the question in that day.
Okay, so she was not time focused. She was focusing on doing one case study. So I would imagine 4 hours per day at
Yes,
least.
yes, sir, around that.
Right, right, right. And in your exam, did you focus a lot on the pre-scene or did you focus on the exhibits?
Exhibits.
How much you use the pre-scene? Little bit or a lot?
So very little. Like I mainly used it for the bouncer question.
You mainly used it for the bouncer question. Very nice, very nice. All right, I guess that's good enough. Okay, Ananya, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, sir.
And thanks from all the students as well who are watching you. Some of them are not believing you, but that's their bad. But again, my deepest thanks to you for taking out the time.
Thank you, sir. Like it was the classes which made it possible, the pass and everything. So
All right. Thanks. All right, Ananya, you can log off now. I will and stay in touch. Okay.
yes, sir. Bye.
Thanks. Bye. All right, guys. So now we just spoke with a real student like you, and she's just reconfirmed all the exam techniques, top 25, just doing 6 papers, writing short, focusing on time, how to manage bouncer. With all this, she scored 87. So it's now up to you whether you want to adopt the smart strategy or you just want to follow your own techniques. This is specifically for self-study. My students who are enrolled, I will definitely follow all these things. So you don't have to worry. You just have to follow exactly what to do. Right. So again, there are some more students like Rahul from South Africa, Shikhai from Malaysia, and Tulsi from Mauritius. All of them scored 92. They have all used my top 25 and they used the study plan and the papers which I had, you know, told them to do. All of them said write short. So these are the tips. You can read it on your own later on. These are the tips for preparation stage. And these are the tips during the exam. This list is from the global prize winners. I have actually interviewed them as well. And if you want to watch the interview of the global prize winners, the link is here. You can actually listen to them just like you listen to Ananya, right? All right, guys. So almost at the end now. So those of you who are not enrolled with me, I have a revision drafting classes coming up starting from 6th of August. And all the details are here. We will be doing past papers, mocks, pre-scene, everything which Ananya said, that's all part of the revision. So if you have not yet enrolled, then I would strongly advise that it will be really helpful to you. Those of you who are already enrolled in my regular batch, resit batch, it's all included in your package. This is the timetable. Let me increase it a bit of the revision batch. You can see what questions are being done. It's pretty intensive. The timing is there. The dates are there. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me or to the admission team. Right, guys? All right. Now I will spare 5 minutes for some question answers if you have. Yes, I will share this PDF along with the top 25 tomorrow after the webinar is completed, right? Will there be a separate session for pre-scene? Yes, there will be a separate session for pre-scene. I think it's on 27th and 28th of August. Yes, Pravalika, I discussed the past papers. Obviously, what else? The revision batch, I will check one mock and give you detailed feedback. Musa, it depends. There is no hard and fast plan for that. Yes, all the classes will be recorded and uploaded the next day. So, right, tomorrow, what is the plan? Tomorrow, there are two important things. Number one, we will talk about the relevant technical articles. Okay, I will cover the relevant technical articles for September. And secondly, we will do one drafting question. We will solve one question so that self-study students have an idea how to draft, how to link. So all those things which I taught today, we will do a demo tomorrow on one of the questions. So tomorrow, two important things, technical articles and drafting. All right. So thank you so much for joining. The recording of tonight will be available tomorrow evening on YouTube and on the portals. And I will see you guys tomorrow, same time for day number 2. Right. So again, thank you so much for joining and take care and good night.